Welcome to the Stir It Up podcast, where our purpose is to encourage, challenge, lift up, and stir up the body of Christ to love and good works. Hello, and welcome to the Stir It Up podcast. I'm Michelle Dowdy.
And I'm Starla Harbin.
Well, we want to welcome you today and hope you have been enjoying the study so far. We did mention last week, we do have the gift basket. So if y'all still want to enter the giveaway, we have a gift basket that will include a couple of my books. What, 5? Did you put 5?
It's a bundle of the CDs
bundle
with Christmas in there.
Yeah, oh, that'll be good. And then a North Star USB drive that has all original music on it, some coffee.
Yes.
I see some right over there.
Coffee over there.
And also the tallow that we talked about a couple of weeks ago that is fabulous. So this is,
It'll be great.
About $150 probably dollar value, and in a nice little basket. So
body and soul, we got you covered.
Right, got you covered. So go email us at stirredup1024@gmail.com. Put giveaway in the subject there, and we will email you back if you're the winner, and then get all your information.
We'll do that several weeks down the road, though. We're going to get through this Bible study. Yeah,
several weeks. So anyway, just wanted you to know about that. All right. Well, we
did great with chapter
right
1 and the intro, and we can move into the mark of submission, chapter 2.
Right. So, and one thing I thought we probably need to say when we're talking about submission to authority, we don't want to be misinterpreted in any way to say someone should submit to someone who is abusing them in any way. So I don't want that to be misconstrued.
Right. You don't submit no matter what. There's guardrails with all that.
And even to someone, like an employer or somebody who's in authority over you, if they ask you to do something unethical, obviously, there are times when you're asked, if you're asked to violate the Lord's, the higher call, then you don't.
That's a good
do
word.
that. So just kind of wanted to say that, lest we be misinterpreted on any of that. But we did talk about how we all have our roles to play. We all have parts that the Creator, when He was designing us and designing mankind, womankind, the family, the way that things would be structured, we all have our parts to play. And we talked about how that's sort of like an orchestra, each part coming in and doing their thing. And if we try to do each other's roles or not live up to our role, then, chaos could ensue and sometimes does. So anyway, that was kind of the introduction, and just we tried to lay a little foundation there. But just wanted to kind of give a definition of submission. In biblical, submission means arranging oneself under a higher authority. So the way we talked about last week, that highest authority being God's authority, and then other levels of authority up underneath that. The word submit comes from the Greek word hupotasso. Did I say that right? Hupotasso. Okay.
That's the way I've heard it pronounced.
Yes, I always have that little check when I'm going to say a Greek word, because I haven't had Greek, so I don't know.
We probably have a little Southern accent to it.
But I always think, okay, are you saying it the way a Southern pastor said it, and you're not really saying it? But anyway, I'm not nothing against Russ. I mean, other. I haven't ever heard him say that word, so I wasn't thinking about that, but just like, when you say other things.
Hupotasso.
Hupotasso. Right. But it comes from a military term for organizing troops.
Okay.
So it's implying that there is an efficient hierarchy for doing things. So
and there is.
That's what submission is. But I'm a sort of a pragmatic, practical kind of person. Like I love reading. I love the philosophy and all the thinking the great thoughts and all that, or reading about the great thoughts of others. And then I always think, okay, what does this look like in my life practically, and how can we live this out? So we want to kind of look at that. But I think first and foremost, the attribute of submission is humility. We looked at that in Philippians 2, that Christ humbled himself. He emptied himself and became obedient to death. So he's fully emptying himself and became a servant. So we're talking about that kind of humility. And I love those verses at 1 Peter 5, 5 through 7. Do you want to read that?
Yes. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility towards one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you.
Yeah, and when I was studying this and putting some of this together, I thought how interesting that was, that he connected humbling yourself with anxiety. Humble yourself at casting your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And I thought, that's where we have to understand our position. If we understand who we are as it relates to who God is, then we can rest. We don't have to be fearful or afraid, because we can cast our anxiety, because we won't have any anxiety, if we're humbling ourselves and realizing our position, who we are. He is God and we are not.
He's sovereign.
Yes. So that was an interesting thing to ponder that more fully. And I thought about times in my own life, and I don't know about you, but for me, I always had a lot of anxiety about my children and their safety when they were little. And I think part of it may have been because when Graham was born, he was a little premature. He was born at 32 weeks. So he had to remain in the NICU for a little while. And he had some apnea of prematurity. So if you know anything about this, they just kind of forget to breathe. That center is not is not going yet. So he would have little periods, like you just have to shake him or give him a little, rouse him a little bit, and then they start again. So but he was on a little monitor, on his chest. So actually he came home with this monitor. Now, I was not an OT at this time, so I really didn't have any medical knowledge or anything. This was very scary.
I mean, so.
I'll just say this because I thought, well, what if something happens? I mean, they made us learn infant CPR before we left the hospital. It's like, what if something happens and I can't save him? This just kind of struck terror in me. Well, then
baby, that's all hard.
Yeah, I had a lot of anxiety about it, and Mark really helped me. And even even our pediatrician, he's called the phone, what can I do to help her? I was just really in a bad way. And and I remember him saying, this is an aside, this is not in here, but he said, tell her to trust God, and I'm not him. And I don't know if I always remember Dr. Hosford saying that. Some people will probably know that are listening to this will remember Dr. Hosford, but anyway, so I've always thought about that. Trust God, and I'm not him. But I thought back to during this time, how the Lord at various times, a few times, has spoken to me, I think, very clearly through a dream. Have you had this? Okay. So, I'm not saying this is something that happens all the time. No. I don't want it to sound all,
right.
But it happens. Or anything, but it does happen. And so I had a dream before, I can't remember if it was before we knew he was a boy. I kind of think it was after we knew he was a boy, but I had a dream of this little boy. I can still see it in my mind's eye now, standing at the end of our hall, just kind of with his hands on his hips and a little white t-shirt and navy shorts. And I remember that, and little blonde head, like your blonde. And I mean, your color of blonde is what I mean. And so, but then I had always, like, before that, I thought, well, he'll have dark hair like
Yes.
Mark, like that was how I was picturing him in my mind's eye. Well, the little boy didn't have black hair. He had blonde, very blonde hair, and a little toddler. And so, sure enough, as Graham grew, he was that little boy. Like,
He looked like
I
that.
knew that when he was born, that was that little boy. That I had seen him,
Right.
and I mean, it was just I can still just tear up. But, I feel like the Lord gave me that and to kind of hang on to. Like, he's going to be okay.
You're going to see him as a toddler.
This is your toddler boy.
Yeah.
But in spite of that,
Sure.
I just continued to kind of, live in that. And that's a regret that I didn't more fully, that I didn't trust the Lord and just live in that peace, because I could have, but I didn't,
I don't know that any of us could do.
I know.
Much
It was
better.
hard. It was hard. But anyway, and then he shortly outgrew that because he really, the last day on his actual due date, he had his last little apneic, little, thing that made the monitor go off, episode, whatever. And it was never anything that was, it was the sound of the monitor.
Sure.
That it would like raise the dead going off.
And sometimes it was the leads. It wasn't even him. So you had that part too.
Yes, like is it a lead coming off, or so you'd have to go in and immediately assess everything and all of that. So, but anyway, just learning through the years, and here I just wrote some thoughts in the years since, learning that God's my sustainer, deliverer, savior, and healer. He's sovereign, omniscient, kind, compassionate, and loving. And he is love, and his perfect love casts out fear.
That's right.
And so if we trust in him and trust in that love, we will not fear. And that, that's not humanly possible, like you're saying. That's only possible with that supernatural love and him working in that way.
Well, I know on that Christmas episode, one of our cooking episodes, we talked about cleaning out the rooms, of our life. And I think if our rooms aren't clean, then it's harder to fully trust and surrender because he is all of those things. So why would we fret when he is sustainer, deliverer, healer, sovereign, kind, compassionate, loving, omniscient, all those things. And then his perfect love, he's all those things. So we can fully trust in him.
That's right. That's right. And just that, and it all starts with that humility, and I've heard it said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less.
I love that.
So, and we were talking about before we started that Elizabeth Elliot quote that it's something like, I may not get it exactly right, but if you want to know if you have a servant's heart, check your attitude when someone treats you like one, or something like that. Like, think about how you respond if someone treats you not well, or like a servant. How do you respond?
And that's what Jesus was, the very nature of a servant.
That's right. That's right. And so, and here again, we started with Philippians 2 last week, but I do quote it in this chapter. So, just to think about how he did empty himself, and even, that humility of Christ in so many ways, but then thinking about when he washed the disciples' feet.
Yes.
Can you imagine, like, grown people's feet?
Men.
Right, grown men's feet.
They didn't have razors back then. They probably had hairy toes.
And it was just, like
dirt, all the dirt and grime from
how did they even cut their nails? I don't know. Ooh. That is not a pretty picture.
No.
So you think about, okay, he humbled himself in, just to show us, okay, this is the lowliest position. This is probably the lowliest position in the household. You know, somebody that comes in and
washes your
you come
feet,
in and they wash your feet. But, you know, I can just imagine him lovingly doing that.
Right.
You know, and it's, you know, it describes how he, you know, he put the towel in his waist, and then you can imagine him maybe drying their feet, you know, like the whole thing. And
imagine how they felt.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I was thinking about if I was sitting there and Jesus was washing my feet. I was thinking about that.
Well, he made, you know, he was there when they were made. You know, he made those feet, and now he's gonna wash them. But so Philippians 2:3-4, from right before those verses, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. So that's really what we're talking about in submission, you know, mutual submission to others, even in the body of Christ. We're called to submit, you know, to put others' needs before our own. And like we were talking about, even in our families, I think we talked about this last week, that is your first opportunity to do that, to live like that, you know, not to be a doormat, but to be, you know, to show your show your children a servant, you know, what it looks like to have a servant attitude, because that's what we're called to.
Right.
And that's the example for them.
That's right.
And they're watching.
Absolutely.
They're watching. So at the end of this chapter, we have prayer time, personal insight. So just for you to do a little journaling, maybe your thoughts on kind of what we've talked about so far, or if there are any revelations that have come to mind. And we'd love to have your comments either, well, like on YouTube, on that platform. Of course, you can comment on there, and even on Spotify. Yeah, there's a place for you to comment on that as well. So, you know, we'd love to have your comments, additional things that maybe we haven't touched on. That is one thing, like you can't touch on everything, maybe,
of it,
you know, but even in going through it, we might, you know, I usually think of other things. Oh, I wish I'd said that or this or that or whatever. But anyway, so we'd love to have that. But then we do have some questions that
so being a pupil of your study, I did my homework.
Okay. Good.
So after the prayer time and personal insights, and of course Michelle has actually a prayer down there as well that she had written, but there's some questions to ponder about this chapter. Do you demonstrate humility in your relationship with others? So I would hope that most of the time, I would personally. And do you think others would describe you as a humble person? I would hope they would.
Yeah,
you know, we strive, we want to be that way, but what do we say?
Is it prideful to say, yes, I'm humble?
But, you know, you can tell when someone is not a humble person.
Yeah.
You know, we were kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
You definitely.
Yeah. Well, and that's more meant for self-reflection. Like, you know, but
to be mindful.
Think about that. You know, like when somebody looks at your life, do you appear as someone that someone could ask to do this or that, or would they think, oh, they wouldn't do that, they're above that, or whatever, you know? So I mean, I think that's one thing I see about you, you know, like with your singing and all, you know, as good as she is and all that, like you could be like, oh, I'm way up here, I'm not going to do this or that or whatever, you know, but I always say,
I'm afraid
the
Lord would humble me.
Right. But your heart matches your gift. You know, your heart is as big as your gift. So I would say, you know, you definitely have that humility, even though you could get puffed up about your abilities over there.
Well, if I ever have in my life, and maybe in my younger years, you know, the Lord has ways of humbling us.
Right.
What is one action that you could take that would show humility? So I just kind of thought about just some everyday ways, you know, acknowledge your mistakes.
Yeah.
Growing up, there was somebody that was close to me, and they would say, he never apologizes, you know. Acknowledge your mistakes, or be slow to speak. I've learned that over the years. I really
Quick
have.
to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger.
Listen and wait. I have become better at that over the years. I like to think through things. I do. I like to listen, and I like to let my mind think through it. So, and wait, and then consider others more significant.
Yeah.
Than yourself.
Right. Yeah, and maybe just doing some sort of task for somebody that you don't really want to do that, might be what would be considered beneath, I hate to say it this way, but like beneath your station or beneath where your position is or whatever,
I tell you,
just doing
humbling, something that's very humbling is to go on a mission trip. Because you are quickly brought into this reality of how blessed you are. I mean, you just feel so humbled by things. And then does anxiety interfere with your trusting the Lord? And of course, I think we could all say, like you were talking about with Graham, yes, we can be overwhelmed, and that's when we take our eyes off of him and put them on our circumstances and how we can try to fix things, which creates anxiety.
Yeah. And I think for young mothers too, this is maybe a lot of what, you have anxiety about their safety, their health, their, any number of things about our children. We can have a lot of anxiety about that can continue, throughout their growing up. And I think that is one thing I wish that in my heart I'd had more of an attitude of just having peace about that, about
I used to say to myself, the Lord loves my children more than I could ever love them.
I've said the same thing.
So I have to release whatever it is. A lot of my stress was over the nursery at all these churches I'd never been to.
I can see that.
And just every Sunday somewhere different. And when they were old enough to talk and tell me things, that's one thing. You know, but when they're little and you just have no clue what the environment is,
you
and
don't know the people. Yeah.
You just have to drop and run, and it's just like that would really stress me out sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but I would have to say, Lord, you love them more than I could ever love them.
Yeah.
And you're with them when I can't be. And so you just watch over them, and I'm going to do what you call me to do. Right. And we'll make it to the next town.
That was one thing I remember, and of course not audibly, but I remember the Lord's words to me when I was having such a hard time. And I remember him, just in my heart saying, he's my son too, and I love him even more than you do. And I really held on to that.
Yeah.
I held on to that. So
that's good.
But anyway, okay, well, is that everything we have?
That was
for this
good,
time?
for this one.
Okay, so next week we will be getting into more of the marriage type things, marriage and family. So, but we hope we're laying a good foundation for y'all. And so now we're gonna go into a recipe here in a minute.
Yes.
Starla's finding hers. So
it's a little
what are we
slow.
going to make today?
So something that Russ really likes. Now, I will say it's not on my top favorites.
Okay.
But he and Papa really like it. And it's Insta-pot, cube steak, and gravy.
Okay.
And so it's really quick and easy. And it's, Papa has a hard time with things sometimes being tender because his mouth will get sore. And so it's just, that's just a side note. But anyway, it's just really good. Yeah. And I usually make either homemade mashed potatoes.
Oh, yum.
But if I don't have the time, then I just use the Bob Evans.
Yeah.
And this is...
rice or something.
And rice, yes. Yeah. They prefer the mashed potatoes. I love rice. So, but I've done it a little bit of every way.
Other good mashed potatoes is Sam's brand. Have you ever bought those mashed potatoes?
Not just
the
Sam's.
Members
Mark. But I've probably had them somewhere.
Yeah. And I just doctor them up a little bit, and they are good. It's a good foundation. They
I always add fresh butter and stuff to mine.
Sour cream,
Okay, so you're going to need 1.5 cups water, 1 can French onion soup, 1 can cream of chicken soup, 1 packet Au Jus Gravy mix, that's the dry, and then 4 cube steaks, which is about 2 pounds, 1/4 cup of water, and 3 tablespoons cornstarch.
Okay.
And so you're going to pour the 1.5 cups water, the French onion soup, the cream of chicken soup, and the packet of gravy into your Insta-pot or your whatever cooker you want to call it. You're going to whisk that together and get it kind of smooth. It'll have a few lumps in it because of the soups, but get it kind of smooth. And then you just lay your cube steak in there.
Yeah.
This would also work with just a regular crock pot.
Yeah.
And then you just want to make sure it's coated with the gravy and get it down in there good. Close your lid, seal it, and then cook it on about 20 minutes. Okay. Every little pressure cooker's different.
Yeah.
It does take time for it to heat up, so you have to factor that in. But once it's heated, cook it on 20 minutes. And then after you cook it, you'll turn your valve to where it's venting. And then you can just let it slowly vent itself.
Okay.
But if you're in a hurry, because it'll just vent, and it'll go down the time. Your timer will actually go up once your 20 minutes is ended. But anyway, or you can just turn the valve and let all that steam out. And it will be hot, so you just got to stay out of its way.
Yeah.
Then you want to turn your Insta-pot to saute.
Okay.
So then it's going to get everything really, really bubbly. And then you want to mix your 4th cup of water and your 3 tablespoons of cornstarch to make a slurry, which will thicken the gravy. Yeah. And then you pour the slurry mixture in there and let that saute setting get really hot. It'll thicken up. And then, but you take your cube steak out while you do that. So I just take the meat out, let it rest on a plate, get the slurry going, get that thickened up. Then you place the cube steak back in, and you're ready to go.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
And it is just good and tender. It actually heats well the next day. It's good for leftovers.
Yeah.
And
cube steak is good. Yeah.
I like it fried the best.
Yeah.
I call them steak fingers, you know.
Yeah.
I like that. And sometimes I have, I'll do like white gravy with steak fingers. But.
That seems like a good winter time. That's almost like comfort.
Kind of having a roast.
Food.
It's like comfort food.
There's that gravy on there. Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And go try the cube steak for tonight.
Run to the store.
Yeah. So we will see you next time on the Stir It Up podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.